Palestrina. Palestrina was a composer set in the Renaissance period of time, a time where music was much more different than what we're currently used to. This time period was known as the Renaissance because it's when things began to change quite drastically, from him actually being admitted into the church as a master composer and then eventually being kicked out of the church and sent to another church. His styles changed drastically, and Palestrina had to evolve or get out of the business. He evolved, sadly for the worst of it. But from his life, we begin. Palestrina was born around 1525 to 1526, originally as Giovanni Pierluigi, and it was only until later on that he actually added the name de Palestrina to his last name. Up until 1540, there was actually not much known about him, other than that he studied under Jacques Arcadelt. Later on, he was elected by Pope Julius III as choirmaster of the Julian Chapel in St. Peter's. It is known that he was married with 3 kids. All but one of the child, including his wife, died of the plague. Palestrina specialized in church music. This was his main function. He wrote a few pieces of secular music, but these were not very well known and are for the most part lost to today. Palestrina's music elaborately focuses on text and emphasizes that rather than the actual music. And his dissonance is created either melodically, so having a third against a fourth or a seventh against a first, as well as rhythmically, so creating rhythmic dissonance like coming in on an end of a fourth, something that wasn't very done for the time. Palestrina was also known for creating large polyphonic pieces that would cadence at the very end and cadence together. So instead of having pieces that ended like a round at whatever time they ended, no matter when they started, they would all end on 5, all end on tonic, all end on the submediant. Whenever he chose to end them, they would end, but they would all end together. The legend, wait for it, Dairy Palestrina. Palestrina can be remarked to have been honestly too great for his time, and most of his music was not widely respected by the actual musical community. Because of what was going on with the Reformation at the time, after Pope Julius III died, the new pope chose that Palestrina's music was too elaborate for the church. And so other composers, such as Thomas Tallis, were ones that actually began to have a large oversight of the more simplistic music. Thomas Tallis, William Byrd, these composers were very simple in their composition styles, whereas Palestrina was fairly elaborate, and his polyphony would be quite complex, even though it would cadence at the same time. It wasn't until later on in modern times, in high schools and colleges, even some junior highs, that Palestrina's music would actually start to be recognized for what it was, and that was great music. Palestrina is also very well known for being a very good source of music education. And for the quite humble first-year music educator, after getting their credentials and starting and finding a job, Palestrina can be very helpful. Much of his music was written in this counterpoint polyphony style, and so this is something that could actually be taught fairly quickly. If you think of a round, and you say, Mary had a little lamb, and sing it in a round of 4 voices, but have everyone start at once. So everyone starts, Mary had a little lamb, and then you add people in slowly as you go. Eventually, everyone knows the part enough that it's easy to sing for them, even in the round. They just think of their own part. This was how Palestrina's music was written, obviously much more complex, but this was the main idea. And this was also not written for the perfectionist of the church, the master soloist that was melismatically trained and could sing anything given to him on a sight singing test or in a vocal studio class. This was a type of music written for the members of the congregation that weren't 100% educated in music professionally. It's not very hard to actually sing Palestrina. It's hard to blend Palestrina, but that's an entirely different story. And talking about blend, Dan Forrest, Eric Barnum, and Eric Whitacre, composers all known for what is known as the cluster chord, which is very high levels of dissonance at a single time. These can be such as a major chord with an added second, fourth, sixth, and minor seventh. And these chords have actually been contemplated and realized as equivalent of the possible sounds of heaven. And all of this started with the composers of the Renaissance. Thank you for watching.